What's going on YouTube? Jarrell King here, aka Relevant Multi-Platinum Music Producer and Music Business Coach. And in this video, I'm going to tell you the best monitors that you should use when it comes to building out your home studio. Now, the first monitors that I'm going to recommend, these are more of an economically friendly monitor, and these are going to be the KRK Rokits. Now, the KRK Rokits are the best home studio monitors for someone who's just getting started. If you don't know anything about music theory or like sonics and frequencies and all that kind of stuff, the best monitors you can go with that are just affordable and they're going to give you some nice, loud, bassy speakers with like some good bottom end is the Rokits. Now, you probably have seen these if you have friends or family that make music and they bought some monitors. There's a big chance that they have the Rokits. They're not hard to miss because they have this big yellow cone in them, so they just stand out in the room. Now, me personally, I'm not a huge fan of the KRK Rokits. I think they're a means to an end and they have their role. The main thing that I do like about them is the low end, the bass. So if you want to just bump music, especially if you're making hip hop music or something with a lot of bass, so if you want to just bump your music loud and have something that just, allows you to hear it and feel it, then I recommend you go with the KRKs. But if you're going to be mixing and you're looking for like real good transparency, I wouldn't say that these are the monitors for you to use. But at the end of the day, if you're just getting started and you don't want to spend a whole lot of money and you just want some good, solid, reliable monitors, go with the KRK Rokits. Now, keep in mind that all monitors, when they're for sale, they are usually sold one at a time, meaning they're sold one speaker individually. And another thing that I want to mention when it comes to monitors is they always come in sizes. So you can get some that are as small as a 5-inch all the way up to a 10-inch woofer. So whenever you see any pair of monitors and you see the number 5 or 6 or 7, 8 or 10, that is referring to the size of the woofer, and it's letting you know how big the speaker is in itself. So when you see that, also remember that also is associated with the price differential. So the smaller the woofer, the smaller the number, the lower in price that monitor is going to be, and the higher that number, the higher in price is going to be. Now, this really all comes down to where you're going to have your studio at. If you're going to be in like an apartment or somewhere where you really can't make a lot of noise, you don't want your neighbors complaining on you or calling the police, it's happened to me multiple times, then you might want to go with maybe a pair of 5s. That's going to be a nice, decent sized desk monitor. You're still going to have plenty of volume, but the bass might not be so heavy so that it's not traveling into your neighbor's house and causing problems. Now, if you have like your own studio or like no neighbors, or maybe you're like a garage or something like that, by all means go with the 8s or the 10s, because you really want to, if you want to feel them, you want to hear them and let them feel that thump, then bump, by all means be as loud as you want to be, as long as it's not going to bother the people around you. Now, before we move forward, do me a favor, hit that like button. If you haven't done so already, consider subscribing to the channel. I post videos like this often where I go over not only just how to build out your home studio, but what it takes to actually build a successful career in the music industry from beginning to end. Everything that I've learned has helped me become a multi-platinum music producer who's been able to make music full time. Now, the second pair of monitors that I recommend are definitely different from the first pair, and these are the Adams Audio. Adams makes some very good monitors. I remember the first time that I heard Adams, I actually didn't really like them because I was so used to mixing on a different pair of monitors that listening to the Adams, I was confused of what it was that I was hearing. I didn't really think that they were worth it based off of the price versus what I was hearing. But after listening to them and working on them and allowing them to grow on me and really taking the time to learn the monitors, I really actually grew a very high appreciation for them. They have a lot of mid-range in the Adams. They do give you bass. I didn't really think that they were that clear on the top end, and that's just because I prefer very clear monitors or anything that I'm listening back on. Same with headphones. I like clarity, and I didn't really think that the Adams were that clear just because the mids were so present. And for some people, that's good because depending on the vocals that you're listening to, vocals can typically sit in like a mid-range, maybe in like a 700, 800 hertz up to 2000 kilohertz. So That can or cannot be the case depending on whatever it is that you're listening to. But ultimately, after I was able to learn the monitors and really get a feel for like the frequency response and the range, I definitely grew an appreciation for them. This will be a good professional, high quality monitor for you to go with without actually breaking the bank. And I'll be sure to leave links below in the description if you want to check out these monitors for yourself here on Amazon. Certain monitors, I've learned that if you have them low, you're going to get a different type of experience than if you actually turn the volume up, and then you can actually really push them and allow some of those different elements of that monitor to really give you what you're looking for. And that's one thing that I wanted to mention now that we're talking about it, is sometimes these monitors need to be broken in. So don't think, even if you decide to go with any of these monitors that I recommend today in this video, don't think that off the first listen, that's exactly how they're going to sound forever. They have to warm up. So if they've just been sitting in a box for who knows how long and you just turn them on, you got to let them actually like get into their rhythm as well. You know, let the parts and the components within the monitor warm up and start to get to a certain part where they're operating at their best. So once you break them in, basically, then you can really make your decision on if you like them or don't. But just off first listen, don't make a decision about any of these monitors. Now, one of the main things that I hear artists and musicians complain about is how expensive some of this equipment can really be. And I get it, I understand. I tell people, if you're gonna do this, it's either gonna be a very expensive hobby, or you need to realize that you are trying to start a business and you need to go into it with that mindset, and starting a business comes with startup costs. And that's exactly what you'd be doing when starting up a home studio. But the issue is most musicians don't have that extra money to start that home studio. They can't spend $600 on monitors and $400 or $1,000 on the interface and all the other things that go into building a home studio. And that's exactly why I created my online training called The Full-Time Musician, where I walk musicians step by step through everything that they need to do to not only secure funding so that they now have money and funds available to invest into their music career, but actually turn that music career into a full-time business that generates income that they can eventually scale into a full-time career and not even have to work a job or ever be worried about how they're going to fund investing in their business ever again. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, feel free to click the link in the bio and check that out. The third monitors that I recommend are actually my favorite monitors. These monitors, I've had multiple pair of them. I've had the 8s, I've had the 6s, which I have right now sitting right in front of me. I've had the 10s in the studio, and I've even had the actual originals when I worked at a certain studio when I lived in New Zealand. And these are the Yamaha HS 7s. And there's 7s, there's 6s, there's 10s, there's 8s. So remember, that's what that number means. These are actually remakes of the original NS10s. So if you were to go to any popular studio over the last, 30 years, you would always see this pair of monitors, the NS10s. They're very easy to recognize because they're black with a white cone, and they're usually just sitting on top of a SSL or a Neve or whatever. The main difference between the NS10s and the HS10s, or the other sizes of HSs, is the original NS10s didn't have an amplifier. Therefore, if you were to go buy a pair of NS10s, you also had to buy the amplifiers that powered the speakers. Now, more than likely, if you bought the NS10s, whoever was selling them also already had the amps, so you buy them together. But there are chances and times where if you look online, you may still find the NS10s without an amp, and then you also have to buy the amp. Whereas with the HSs, they are the remake of the NS10s. They're just brought up to date, where they made them where they don't even need an amp. They're self-powered. They don't need an external amp resource to get them to work. But they still were able to capture a lot of the main key components of what the original NS10 sounded like. Now, the reason these monitors are so popular and also my favorite, they're very flat. They're very just transparent, and they don't have a lot of bottom end or a lot of top end. You can mix on these flat speakers, and if you can get your mix to sound good on those, they're going to sound good everywhere. The reason that's actually a very good thing is because some of this equipment can actually add a different type of color or noise or sound to the original audio signal. And the most important thing when it comes to recording is having a very clear, unaltered non-manipulated signal. You want your signal to be as clean and clear as possible. And if you're running it through certain gear and that gear is actually adding additional sounds to that signal, then it's going to alter the way that your signal is, and you can't undo that. So when you listen to something on monitors, you want monitors that aren't going to add any color. You want your headphones that aren't going to add any color. And you for sure don't want your interface to add any color, because you're going to be listening to it with this color. But then when you go to listen to it somewhere else that's not in the devices that you were listening to it on, it's not going to sound that way. And you're going to base your whole mix off of what it sounded like on one thing, and then hear it on like your phone or in a car, and it sounds completely different. And that's what you want to avoid. I've had these pair of monitors the most in different scenarios, and just bought them on my own multiple times. I've bought them, I've sold them, I've bought smaller ones, but I always make sure I come back to the Yamahas, just because if I'm going to mix on any type of monitor, whether it be in a major studio or at home, I'm going to mix on my Yamahas. And if I do have another pair of monitors to check for like bass or some type of other range of frequency that I'm listening for, then I'll listen to the song on those speakers afterwards, and then I'll A and B the mixes to see, is their bottom end hitting on these speakers, or is the top end hitting on those speakers, versus what does it sound like on the Yamahas. And I'll just go back and forth and make my adjustments as need be. But at the end of the day, these are my personal favorite monitors. You go to any studio, more than likely they are going to have a pair of either the NS10s or the HSs, and that's because they're great. So these are my most recommended monitors for anyone who's going to have a home studio. If you want to get some for yourself, there's a link in the description box below. Check that out. But at the end of the day, it really all comes down to preference, your budget, and what your goals are. And if your goals are to make sure that you have quality monitors to mix on, then go with the Yamahas. If you really just want to have some monitors just to get started, go with the KRKs. So if you found this video helpful, do me a favor, if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that like button, or if you haven't done so, consider subscribing to the channel. I ask simply because I'm really trying to grow this channel, and as these videos get more likes and more comments, YouTube puts the videos in front of more people so that the video gets more views and more people can actually learn how to actually build their home studio to their liking. So that's really all I have for you today. I hope you found this video informative and valuable. Until the next time, take care and God bless.